Okay, welcome to video 2 in our pre-Jumpstart series that we are recording this time, leading up to our next Jumpstart meeting, which is a meeting specifically for people who are recently diagnosed with Parkinson's. And there isn't necessarily a clear definition for that. Kind of within the past 3 years seems to be the consensus. And it depends on the person, though, we would say, in terms of maybe what access or what resources you have been able to access so far, what information you've gained. We know that there are some people who have been diagnosed longer than 3 years who haven't necessarily accessed a lot of resources yet. So we really think that these meetings can be helpful for a lot of people, but we do really focus on information that is highly relevant for people who are newly diagnosed. My name is Claire Mclean. I'm a physical therapist and I specialize working with people who have Parkinson's and have been doing this for 14 years. And I'm co-hosting this meeting with some friends and colleagues of mine because we feel really passionate about helping people get to information and resources as quickly as possible after they're diagnosed so that they can get started with the healthy lifestyle habits and things that will help them live better and healthier over the long term with Parkinson's. And kind of the sooner people get started, the better. So that's why I'm involved. And I will hand off the talking to Lauren so she can introduce herself. And Lauren is co-hosting the meeting with me, and she has put together an amazing website of resources and things. If you watched the last video that we recorded, we went through a lot of that. So I'd recommend checking out that video if you didn't. But even if you haven't watched that video, we wanted to make sure to give a little bit of an introduction to ourselves so you know kind of where we're coming from and why we're involved with this meeting.
Thanks. I'm Lauren Simmons, and I was diagnosed with Parkinson's about 4.5 years ago. And when I was diagnosed, I didn't have any resources. I didn't know what was available to me. So that's one of the reasons that why I'm involved with this whole thing is I want people that are newly diagnosed to get the resources as soon as possible after their diagnosis because it helps so much. And when I was first diagnosed, I got invited to a support group not too long after my diagnosis, and I did not go. I fought it. I didn't want to do it. And eventually I went and I met Dave, who is going to be speaking next. And I met the most wonderful people, and it was a new family to me. And support groups are a huge, huge part of keeping your quality of life up when you have Parkinson's. It's another family for you. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dave.
Hi, thank you, Lauren. Hi, I'm Dave Orlowski. I was officially diagnosed with Parkinson's in 1999, which I guess is like about a little over 22 years now. So how long ago? That's before Tom Brady even entered the NFL. So it was quite a while ago. And in those days, you didn't hear much about Parkinson's. Michael J. Fox had just recently, a few months before that, in November of '98, gone public with his diagnosis, and that's when you started hearing a little bit more about Parkinson's. But for the first 10 years that I had it, I didn't say anything to anybody. I tried to keep it quiet. And the last thing I wanted to do was join a support group. And I basically just tried to get by on my own. And then surprisingly, about 10 years into my diagnosis, my neurologist at the time down at Scripps Center asked me to tell my story to a boot camp class for newly diagnosed. And at that point, I realized that at that point, I had never, 10 years into it almost, I'd never even spoken to another person with Parkinson's. And I realized at that time, you need to speak to other people with Parkinson's. I mean, it's critical. And so I joined a support group down in San Diego, and through that support group, I got over my fear of talking about it, and I kind of stopped trying to deny it. Basically, I kind of got out of denial, and that made me get over my fear of speaking about it. And then, unfortunately, that group folded, and I joined a support group that Lauren mentioned, and there were some dynamic people in there that were determined to get to learn more about Parkinson's, and I fed off that, and I eventually became the facilitator for a while, and which was surprising after not wanting to join a support group, and the benefits of it are just tremendous. I mean, that's made all the difference in the world, the education, and but most of all, the socialization part of it has been fantastic. And I met some wonderful people, and met some wonderful people, and I've continued to grow. I go to support group meetings and all these other conferences that organizations put on, and you meet some great new people. And now with the Zoom world, I met some great people over Zoom support groups. So with that, I'll pass it off to Donna, who's now the facilitator of our support group, and she's an amazing lady who also runs a Care Partner support group, and also the Rock Steady program, which I'll let her tell you about. Donna.
Thanks, Dave. It's so nice to be with you. Thank you for this opportunity. My background is a little bit different than most of you. I have a science background in chemistry, and so my career was in sales and marketing in the healthcare market. I've always been an enthusiast of wellness, nutrition, science, physical fitness. And I've been boxing for about 8 years now. And a couple of years ago, my coach introduced me to Rock Steady Boxing. And it was just a question, have you ever heard of Rock Steady Boxing? And I had never heard of it. And he said, go home and Google it. And I did so immediately. And the moment I saw that video, I started to cry. And I knew that there was something there for me. I needed to do it. So I called him and said, I want to be a part of it. And he said, I was hoping you would say that. So he and I began a journey together a couple of years ago of opening a Rock Steady Boxing affiliate here in South Orange County in Rancho Santa Margarita. And it was very slow because my career was still keeping me very busy. I retired in December of 2019 with aspirations of going full forward in January 2020. And there we were for probably 6 to 8 weeks, building up our program, and then COVID hit. And so, long story short, we know what we were all doing. We were in our homes, and about May or so, I was becoming very anxious. I was concerned about my boxers. I was concerned about their well-being and could see some decline. And so I approached a couple of them and said, I've got 2 free bags, freestanding bags and weights. And would you like to go out in the park? Would you like me to come to your home? And since that time, we have developed a really wonderful program in the park in Dove Canyon. And so we meet 4 mornings a week, and eventually we'll get back into the gym. But for now, that's where we are. Most recently also, I have become certified in becoming a fitness specialist primarily for Parkinson's disease. It's a program that specializes in Parkinson's, and I just want to continue my own education on this journey with my friends who have Parkinson's and see how I will be able to help them. So join us at any time. I am thinking about starting a virtual program, but that certainly is in the future. So thank you for this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for being here. With our first Jumpstart meeting, Donna was there, the live meeting we had, and she did a boxing demo, which was really great. And so this time, unfortunately, Donna isn't able to be with us live, but once we confirm the date for the third one, we're going to do one more in kind of this series that this meeting is kind of supported and funded by the Parkinson's Foundation. So we have one more that we're going to be doing. So we'll check the dates with you, Donna. So maybe you can be back to do that boxing demo again. But yeah, especially we want anyone who's watching this or attends the live meeting who lives in Orange County to know about this. In Orange County, California, I have to be careful because there is one in Florida too, and maybe in other states. But in Orange County, California, knowing what the resources are, either right in the area where you live, sometimes there's something that's right down the street, or if there isn't something right down the street, what is close and accessible to you, Or, if someone knows they want to do rock steady boxing and is really excited to be outdoors for exercise. I know we did an outdoor class at a park for a couple of years, and there were a lot of people who were just like, this is where I want to exercise. I don't want to be in a gym. I actually want to be outside. So yeah, in California, we're so lucky. And then rock steady boxing, as Donna mentioned, there are affiliates. So even if you do live somewhere else in Southern California or in another state, there are lots of affiliates. So you can go on Rock Steady Boxing's website and look up an affiliate in your area. And they have done such a great job training lots of people. And there are programs in many places across the country and even outside the US. So that is something that you can look up. And then the other thing that you've kind of heard us talking about a little bit already are support groups. And that's one of the things that we want to bring up as a resource. And we really want to encourage people to look and seek out support groups sooner than later, because again, living with Parkinson's, being diagnosed and just going through that experience on your own, or even if you have a super supportive family there, they likely don't know that much about Parkinson's. And so to get the opportunity to meet other people with Parkinson's, I think is one of the most helpful things that I've heard from people is, being around other people who understand what you're experiencing, what it's like, what it feels like, how that changes how you think about things. And so support groups can be extremely helpful. And also, not just meeting people, but then, the resources, having people come and give educational talks and hearing people talk about the different neurologists in the area and the other resources and exercise classes. There's just so much that can be learned. And so I was just going to share my experience with support groups is I, as a physical therapist, have had a lot of experience attending support groups and sometimes presenting on the topic of physical therapy or exercise. And what my experience has been is just how different groups can be. And usually there's kind of a personality of a group that can be very dependent on the people who are leading that group. And so there are some, groups that are extremely proactive. Most people are exercising and really taking charge of their health. And there are some groups that are not as active or exercising and have different perspectives. So what I really encourage people to do is, if they've attended a support group and found it to be helpful, wonderful, keep going to that support group. But if you've attended one and it wasn't a good fit for you, it doesn't mean that support groups aren't going to be helpful. It just means that that group isn't the right one for you. And hopefully you live in an area where there are multiple. I do think it's something that's worth driving. Usually support groups are happening once a month or a frequency like that. So I think it's worth a little bit of a drive to be around people, who are going to be really helpful and supportive and uplifting. And then the other thing with COVID is that there are so many more resources and meetings that are happening online. So even if you live in an area that's more rural and maybe there isn't a group really close by, you may be able to find resources online and still meet people and get to know them and experience some of the same type of support and encouragement that you would in person. So that's kind of my experience with support groups. And I know, Dave, you mentioned it a little bit in your intro, but we just were talking before we started recording about what people's idea of what a support group might be like. And what is your experiencing now? Have you attended multiple different groups, or was it just kind of that one in San Diego and then that one in South Orange County?
Of course, the one in San Diego and then the one in Orange County. And there's I've been to a couple of spin-offs of people's that PMD Alliance puts on, but mostly it's been online support groups that I've attended additionally, other than ours. And those are very beneficial too. There's a different atmosphere in them. People don't want to come sometime in person because they don't want to stand up. It's not necessarily like an Alcoholics Anonymous thing that we all see on TV, that people have the impression that you have to stand up and talk about yourself. And people all say welcome and so forth. It's not necessarily like that, in most support groups. You can go anonymously, whether it's online or in person. You can go and just be quiet and listen and speak up when you want to. And so the virtual ones have become very good too, because you can, again, sit in anonymously, which is what a lot of people want to do until they get comfortable with it. And the advantage of the online ones too is that there's the support, speaker possibilities are endless. You've got some fantastic speakers, and sometimes you have a speaker, sometimes you don't have a speaker, and you just talk among yourselves. And there are different formats of it. Some support groups have a speaker every week or every meeting. Some don't have speakers at all. Some have hybrids that have a speaker for half the meeting and talk among yourselves for the other half. And so it just depends what you're looking for. Some support groups break into smaller groups too, which some people feel more comfortable in a smaller group of 4 or 5. So it's just a matter of what you're looking for. But there are plenty of places that list the support groups available in different parts of the country. So I mean, there's definitely a support group for everybody, and I strongly encourage it. It's made a huge difference for me.
Yeah, and I think there also could be ones that are a little bit organized by, topic or kind of group of people. So especially online, there may be more options like meetings that are specifically for people who are newly diagnosed or, maybe who have had Parkinson's longer or, kind of different topics. Women's group, there's some women's groups that have existed for a long time, but a lot of them were in person. And so now there's more online access, but there may even be like a women's or a men's group in your area. So I think that's helpful. I would also say in my experience, people leading the groups are often very open. If someone were maybe feeling a little bit uncomfortable to just attend a meeting for the first time, like back in person, often you could contact the leader of the group. If there's a website or something, there usually is going to be a contact. So I would encourage people, call that person first, talk to them on the phone. That'll help you feel more comfortable to attend that meeting. Or sometimes I know a lot of times it helps to like meet someone one-on-one. And so I know like with our classes, sometimes if I meet someone, I'll encourage them to go to a group, but I'll also say, I have a few of our members for our exercise classes who have had Parkinson's, for a period of time, and they're really happy and open to talking to others. And so sometimes like a one-on-one meeting first can be helpful to get someone a little bit more comfortable to then attend a meeting in person. So we want to let people know there's lots of options with how that kind of goes. It doesn't mean that you just, have to show up to this meeting where you've never talked to anyone before and, meet people there. There's kind of steps you could take leading up to that to help you feel a little bit more comfortable too.
I've had that many times where people have called me, they've gotten my number off our support group website, and they've called me to ask about the group just out of curiosity. And I end up speaking to them for an hour or so because they're so intrigued with the group and want to know so much more about it. The other thing I was going to say, Claire, is there's a special category of support group called YOPD for young onset Parkinson's patients. And those are geared toward typically the 40 to 50-year-old who gets it early and who's typically still working. And they face a whole special set of challenges because they're still working. And those groups are very good to meet other young onset Parkinson patients or people too. And you might want to, if you're young in your 40s or 50s, you might want to look for a young onset support group.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And then also, like Donna, you help facilitate that support group as well in Mission Viejo is where it's based out of, correct? Although it's online right now.
Correct. Yes. So this is the South Orange County Parkinson Support Group. We meet on the first Thursday of every month at 4:00. It was in person at the Norman Murray Senior Center. Now it's virtual. So we would invite you to please reach out to myself, Dave, Lauren, if you have any questions at all. Our contact information is on the support group page, Lauren with PD Buzz. Just call any one of us and we'd be happy to speak to you, answer any questions, but we would love to have you. Also, during COVID, I was hearing from some of my boxers and some of the individuals in the support group that their spouses were anxious and wanted to protect their loved one from COVID, obviously. There was a little bit of depression setting in. We were not socially interacting with our loved ones, with our friends. And again, I kept thinking, what could I do to help? So I reached out and to some of my friends here and reached out to our members at our support group and asked if their spouses might be interested in joining this Care Partners support group. And I would say within 24 hours, I must have received 28 responses. So I knew that there was a need for it. So we meet every other Monday afternoon, virtually at 4 o'clock. And these individuals have expressed such gratitude to be a part of this. They don't want to burden their loved one with anything more. They felt that their friends and family would definitely empathize with the situation that they're in, but people really truly don't understand unless they experience it themselves. So within that hour, there is a lot of conversation. We talk about whatever they want to talk about. And it has been so enriching. I have a co-facilitator who has joined me, Renee Lorch. She is a marriage and family counselor. She specializes in neurological disorders. And so I've got, the two of us working so well together, and we have been enriched through this experience. So if any of you have care partners, whether you're newly diagnosed, whether an individual has had Parkinson's for a while and their care partner would be interested in joining, please do. Just give me a call. Thank you.
If I can make a comment on that, Claire, I think for the care partners groups, a lot of people think that as someone gets more advanced in their Parkinson's, the care partner might need support. But I think any care partner needs support, even for someone newly diagnosed. I was talking to someone recently and he was talking and he said, when we got our diagnosis, well, he was the one that has the Parkinson's, but he said we, meaning he and his wife, the whole couple or the family gets the diagnosis. It doesn't just affect the person with Parkinson's. So that person, the partner of the person with Parkinson's, they want to educate themselves as well. They need the support. They want to know what's going on, with their person with Parkinson's without, like Donna said, without burdening them. So I think it's really, really important for any of them to seek out the support. And the support groups, my basic advice on support groups is, if you don't like one, go to another. If you don't like that one, go to another. There's a lot of them available virtually now. We've got even more. But like I said, there's women's groups, there's religious groups, there's groups that might be have a certain language spoken. There's groups for people who've had DBS, deep brain stimulation. Like Dave said, the young onset groups. I know I've been to multiple groups and sometimes I walk in and I'm the youngest person in the room because I was a little younger when I was diagnosed. And some groups, that just wasn't comfortable. And other groups, it's fine. So they all have their own personality. If you don't like one, it's okay. Just move on and find another one. And Dave mentioned the Parkinson Movement Disorder Alliance on their website, and we can attach the link. They have a resources page and you can find support groups all over the country. It's a great page. So that's a really good place to go to look for support groups in your area.
Okay, great. Yeah. And I was going to say too, with talking about the care partner groups, I would say a lot of support groups are for people with Parkinson's, but also, family members are totally welcome to attend. Sometimes, groups will be separated out and like just the people with Parkinson's will get together and they will be able to kind of share and talk about things that, there's sometimes things that you maybe don't want to talk about in front of your partner or spouse, or things that you just want to get off your chest a little bit. So I think most groups tend to have, welcome both members of a partnership if there's a marriage, but sometimes it gets separated out. And definitely think those care partner groups are extremely helpful because the groups that are welcoming everyone, I would say still have a little bit more of a focus usually on the people with Parkinson's. And so it's really nice for those partners to have the opportunity to really ask their questions without feeling like, they're taking, over the meeting or, asking and someone with a Parkinson's doesn't get a chance to ask their question. So I think having some kind of dedicated support is super important and helpful. And I agree, sooner than later. I've heard the we said even like the spouse, the spouse who doesn't have Parkinson's will say, we're diagnosed on this date, or this is, what's going on. So yeah, I think that happens a lot in married couples. And I was also going to say, I think it's PMD Alliance who also has a lot of support for adult children of people with Parkinson's. So, if you have children who are in their 20s, 30s, 40s, who are adults and maybe involved in care and decision making, and even I just met someone who was diagnosed 2 weeks ago, right before we recorded this call, and his wife came and both of his kids came. So it was the 5 of us talking about things. They all had questions, they all want to know how to best support their dad who was just diagnosed. And like some of the coolest things I've ever seen are people who, start exercising with other members of their family. Like it's great if spouses exercise with the person with Parkinson's. And then it's also really cool if that's the activity that people start to do with their kids. They start to go on walks or runs or try a new sport, and I think the whole family can really get involved in these healthy behaviors. But also sometimes it's nice to have a meeting that is for kids because then they get to ask questions that they're wondering about. And sometimes they might be wondering both about how to support their parent with Parkinson's. They may also wonder a little bit about themselves. And, with having a family member with Parkinson's, how does that affect their risk? What are kind of the genetic sides of Parkinson's? And so I think a diagnosis of Parkinson's just brings up so many questions for everyone in the family. And the truth is the medical system, like doctors and neurologists, are not given the amount of time to answer these kinds of questions and have all of these conversations. So that's why these resources in the community are so critical. And again, any anxiety or stress someone might be experiencing, I think just being around others and learning and knowing that how there just is so much out there actually for people with Parkinson's, I think that, can help people start feeling better right away. So yeah, anything else that anybody would like to share about groups before we sign off in our pre-Jumpstart meeting?
There is a support group page on PD Buzz for the Orange County support groups. So if you're looking for one in Orange County, there's not as many right now as there were before COVID. So hopefully we'll get some more going in the future. But if you're looking in Orange County, there's a page on there for the groups.
All right, very good. So yeah, we'll put those links below this video as well. And we hope to see you live on April 17th at 12 p.m. Pacific time on Zoom. If you haven't gotten your Zoom link yet, go to roguept.com/jumpstart, and you can sign up for the email list to get the email Zoom link, and we'll be getting together live. We'll have Dr. Bixby, a neurologist. We'll have a singing demo. We will have other fun things, and we'll have exercise demos. So we are actually going to kind of solidify the agenda. We'll be sending that out soon, but we hope that you're able to come and attend live, and then you can ask any questions you have, and hopefully get some good information to get started then. All right. Thank you guys all so much for joining.
Thanks, Claire.
Thank you, Claire.
Oops. No, I want to leave. I did it again. Cancel. Instead of stopping